What's up, guys? Ergo here again. Today we're going to be doing something a little differently. Normally I script out my videos, but I wanted to do it a bit different, a little more freestyle this time. Give it a try, see how I do at it. So let me know what you guys think. So let's get into it. First off, we've got the new faction, which is going to be the Woven. They are themed around the Weaver, so lots of spiders and spider webs and cocoons and stuff. You unlock access to the Woven by completing your first Cemetery of the Erased, which we'll get to in a few minutes. And the main thing you get from the Woven is the ability to buy Woven Echoes from the main NPC Mask, which is something else we'll get into in a few minutes. And also the Weaver Tree, which we'll get into right now. The Weaver Tree is a passive tree. It's similar to like our mastery trees and our skill passive trees and such, but instead of being based around our character, it's based around our monolith. You get 50 points in it, and some of the points you get from each rank of the Woven. Every time you rank up the faction, you'll get 1 point, and you'll also get access to a few more Woven Echoes to buy from Mask. And then the rest of the points you get from completing Woven Echoes. Not all of the Woven Echoes will give you points, but most of them do. There's a couple exceptions for like really end game stuff. And the bonuses on the Weaver Tree are pretty interesting. They're mostly for changing around how your timeline, your monolith timeline works, changing what kinds of echoes can actually spawn in it, changing what kinds of rewards you can get from those echoes. There's a couple nodes that let you completely remove like arena echoes if you don't like doing arena echoes, or if you really like doing arena echoes, you can turn arenas into super arenas, which just are harder. They have a lot more things to fight. I think there's more waves as well, but they give more loot as well. So it kind of lets you mold your monolith into the things that you really like. The really most interesting things on the Weaver Tree, though, are these special nodes that have a socket with them that let you slot an item into the socket. They call it imprinting. You're imprinting an item into the slot, and there's a few different functionalities depending on which node that particular imprint slot is associated with. One of them gives you a chance for items similar to the imprinted item to be granted as extra rewards when you complete echoes, so you'll just see more of that item. And then there's another one that is you just have a chance when you're running the monolith, I assume on kills, I think is the way it works. There's just a chance for a loot explosion of a bunch of items of the same type and rarity of the item that you have imprinted. So that's pretty cool. There's also some imprinting slots associated with Woven Echoes, but I'm not entirely sure what the bonuses are going to be for imprinting echoes, but I would imagine it's going to be pretty similar to what it is for items. This is a really cool system. I always like games that let you kind of mold the end game into what you want to play, because it's not going to be super often that you like every mechanic that's in an end game. So the ability to like remove mechanics that you don't like, or incentivize mechanics that you do like, always a great system to me. So this is a welcome addition to the game, especially because it's going to be evergreen. Now, I said earlier that the way you unlock access to the faction is by completing your first cemetery, but before we can talk about cemeteries, we have to talk about tombs. Tombs of the Erased are the main new mechanic that is coming with Season 2. It's the whole theme of the season, and Tombs of the Erased are a side area that can spawn inside a zone. The area is procedurally generated, and inside of it are a bunch of silken cocoons and obviously a bunch of monsters to kill. When you break open the silken cocoons, it releases a soul, and the soul goes out and possesses a nearby enemy, makes the enemy stronger, gives them more health and damage, and gives them unique abilities. And then when you kill them, they give you Memory Amber, which is a currency. It's the currency that you use to buy Woven Echoes, and they also drop pretty good loot as well. At the end of a tomb, there's a boss, which is called the Gold Thread Fate Weaver. And this boss, when you defeat it, it will give you a chest that has a duplicate of the rewards from the Echo you're in if you're on the Monolith. As far as I understand it, the tombs should also appear before you get to the end game throughout the campaign. I'm not sure what the chest would have in that case. I would imagine it probably just has rewards based on the level you're at. But more importantly than the rewards, after you defeat the boss, you're given access to the Woven Enchanter, which lets you do the idle enchanting crafting system that we went over in the video that I made a few days ago about the new crafting system. So if you want a more in-depth dive into how that mechanic works, you can find it there. But quick TLDR is essentially you can take class-specific idols, put them into the Woven Enchanter, and activate it, and it turns them into a heretical idol, which will have the affixes that were already on the idol, and it will add an enchanted affix from a new pool of affixes that are new to the season and you can only get from enchanting. And then it also puts Weaver's Touch onto the item, which is functionally the same as Weaver's Will in the current game. It's a very interesting system. I definitely recommend checking out the crafting video that I made after this to get more information about it and all of the other new crafting systems that are coming in the patch. There's 6 new crafting systems coming in, and it's a lot of stuff. Very interesting stuff too. I will be touching on each of them a little bit here in this video. I'm not going to go in depth on them since I've already done so in that previous video. Now that's the Tombs of the Erased. Next we have the Cemeteries of the Erased, which are like tombs, but instead of spawning within zones, they are an echo that can spawn on your Monolith timeline. Functionally, they're pretty much the same as tombs outside of that, except that they are, I would assume, a bit bigger, a bit harder, and they also drop woven echoes within them. In addition to having the cocoons, having the extra loot from possessed monsters, having the memory amber from the possessed monsters. So that's going to be one of your main sources of woven echoes in addition to buying them from Mask. And then at the end of a cemetery is going to be a boss. It didn't say anywhere if it's also a Gold Thread Fate Weaver. I would imagine it is because they didn't specify. And when you defeat the boss at the end of a cemetery, not only do you get access to the Woven Enchanter with 2 uses instead of only the 1 use you get in Tombs, but you also get access to the Altar of the Weaver, which is how you use your Woven Echoes. So we'll do, this will be a good time to jump into the Woven Echoes. What Woven Echoes are an itemized version of the echoes that are on your Monolith timeline. They are unique echoes. It's a unique zone with unique mechanics and bosses and stuff. And each one, like I said earlier, when you finish them, you get a point to spend in your Weaver tree. And the Altar of the Weaver is how you put them on your timeline. You can not only store them in the Altar of the Weaver, but it also allows you to... Actually, I'm not sure if you store them in the Altar of the Weaver. I think you just store them in the dedicated Woven Echoes tab on your inventory, because I'm pretty sure that has unlimited capacity. But the Altar of the Weaver is where you decide where on your timeline you want to put them. One thing I'm not entirely clear on is whether or not you replace echoes that are on the timeline with woven echoes, or if you just slot them into an empty space on the timeline and then they attach to nearby echoes. I'm not entirely sure on that. We'll have to find out. We'll have to find out once we get our hands on the actual mechanic, but that is how woven echoes work. And then there's also, if you're having trouble getting one of the woven echoes that you need for a point for your Weaver tree, there is a 3-to-1 vendor recipe for the woven echoes where you sell 3 woven echoes to a vendor and you get a random one back. I don't think it has to be 3 of the same woven echo. I think it just has to be 3 of any woven echo, and then you get 1 random one. So if you're having trouble, if you only have like a couple woven echoes left to finish for points and they're just not dropping, you can also cycle your extra drops of woven echoes that you don't like doing and just every time you get 3 of those, sell them to get another opportunity to get a new one. And then one last thing for the Woven Echoes is there's going to be 2 new endgame bosses within the mechanic. This is the Drawl Queen and Ignixeros, the Antipode Dragon. They each have their own Woven Echo that they are a part of, and they're both going to have their own special boss unique drops as well. There was also mention of more powerful versions of some of the timeline bosses will be present on some of these echoes as well. And one of the echoes is how we're going to fight Uber Aberoth as well. I'm going to assume the only place the Woven Echo for Uber Aberoth drops is going to be from Aberoth himself, but maybe that's not the case. I don't know. We'll have to see. That was not mentioned. It was only mentioned that exists. But that's for the most part the mechanics around the new faction. It's going to be a very interesting addition to the end game, that's for sure. Now for the other crafting systems, we'll just skim over them real quick. Like I said, we have the Woven Enchanter for idle enchanting. You get 1 use at the end of tombs, 2 uses at the end of cemeteries, and then you get 3 uses at the end of the Sepulchre of the Lost Woven Echo, and 4 uses at the end of the Cenotaph of Worlds Woven Echo. So the most you can get is 4 uses. But that's quite a lot because you are also able to re-roll idols if you use the Woven Enchanter on an idol and you don't really like the affix you got, you can re-roll it again and expend another use, and it'll give you a new affix. It'll roll the affix again, and it'll roll the amount of Weaver's Touch again as well. Then we have the Forge of Shattering for the set reforging system. This is going to be available at the end of the Great Bridge Woven Echo. That is also an exciting crafting system. I mean, all of these new crafting systems are pretty nice, but this one, just to touch on it real quick, it's going to let us shatter set items into crafting shards that we can use to then craft our own other rare items into a reforged version of the original set item. It'll keep the stats on the rare item and also add the set affix and make it count towards the set bonuses. Then we have the Transmuting Gem for legendary potential rerolling. This is going to be on the Farsight Turtle Woven Echo. The Sacrificial Altar for rerolling unique legendary and set affixes, which is at the end of the Gauntlet of Strife Woven Echo. And then finally we have the Thaumaturgy device for experimental item crafting. This is going to be at the end of the Rune Prison Complex Woven Echo. And because of this system, the Glyph of Insight and the Rune of Research are being removed. They're being replaced with this system, essentially, because those are the 2 crafting items, the 2 crafting materials that are used for adding experimental affixes and re-rolling experimental affixes in the game currently. So they're just essentially getting replaced with the Thaumaturgy device instead. Then we've got champion enemies, which are a new class of enemy. They are essentially more powerful rares. They have 2 rare affixes like rares usually do, plus a champion affix. The champion affix gives them a unique ability, and then them being a champion also makes them tankier and deal more damage. And then when you kill them, they drop better loot, and they are guaranteed to drop an item that has an affix associated with the champion affix that they were. So for example, if you kill a Volcano champion, that they will always drop an item that has the Volcano champion's affix on it. And then they also have a small chance to drop exceptional loot, which I'm not sure what exceptional loot necessarily means, but I would assume it just means like very rare stuff like multiple tier 7 exalteds or exceptionally rare uniques or uniques with high amounts of legendary potential, that kind of stuff. That's what I would expect. And there are going to be champion related nodes on the Weaver tree as well, so definitely keep an eye out for that. I think the champions are going to probably wind up being a pretty valuable source of loot. The Monolith is also getting a bunch of rebalance changes, the highlights of which are the Shade of Orbis is being rebalanced so that it's a little bit easier at lower levels, but gets a bit harder towards level 100, which is a very good change in my opinion, because this could just be because I've been weak when I've gotten to the Shade of Orbis the first time, but I've always struggled with him when I first get to him. So this is kind of a nice change in my. And they're making arena echoes shorter, less waves. They're making the rewards from arenas better, and they're also making it so that the enemies run towards you faster and die a bit easier. That way, overall, the arena echoes just feel much more worthwhile, which is good because I never really liked the arenas. They always just kind of felt super slow and annoying. So this will hopefully help with that a lot. And then finally, echoes with spires in them as the objective will no longer globally shoot at you like they currently do. They now have a guardian that shields them. It's a rare enemy that shields them, and the spire won't start shooting at you until you engage the guardian in combat, and then you have to kill the guardian for the shield to drop off the spire before you can kill the spire. And then once you've killed all the spires, you complete the echo like usual. Now on to the big juicy changes for the patch is going to be the skill and class updates. There are a lot of changes coming in. Obviously, we've already gone over the Sentinel rework, which is very extensive. Not only is Volatile Reversal getting a complete rework, which you can see in the video I did about the Sentinel rework. I'll link that down in the description. But Devouring Orb is also getting quite a few changes. Javelin is getting quite a few changes. Sigils of Hope is getting completely changed into Symbols of Hope and making it more passively generated rather than having to actively press the button. Paladin and Void Knight, both of their passive trees are getting full reworks. Not every single node is getting changed, but most of them are, and they're getting a lot of the threshold bonus type nodes added in to bring them on par with the newer trees like Warlock and Falconer. So they're going to be much more powerful. This will bring them in line with Forge Guard in terms of design. Obviously, Paladin and Void Knight in terms of balance were already stronger than Forge Guard even after Forge Guard's update, but in terms of design at least they are on par with Forge Guard now. I really love the threshold bonus system for passives where you get, like, you put 5 points into this node and you get this extra effect. I think it makes the building of characters much more interesting. It makes the choices of which passives you want to get much more interesting, in my opinion. It definitely incentivizes you to spread your points out more instead of just dumping all of your points into like 5 of the best nodes. You're much more incentivized to spread your points out to get a bunch of different threshold bonuses that are very good for you. So I'm very happy to see those being added. In addition to that, many of the skills that are on the weaker side in the current season are being buffed up, and the outlier abilities that are a bit too strong are also being brought down a bit to make them more in line with the rest of the game, which is always good to see. You always want to see balance changes and stuff. Notably, some of the abilities that are getting pretty big buffs are for the Sentinels, like Erasing Strike, Forge Strike. Hammer Throw is getting some small buffs. Javelin is getting a lot of buffs and some mechanical changes as well. Multi-Strike is getting some very good changes, especially for its single target power. Rive is getting a bunch of changes that are hopefully going to make it stronger. Most of this stuff for the Sentinel you find in the rework video, like I said earlier. The Rogue is getting the new Heartseeker ability for the Marksman class, which is it's a physical bow attack that has a chance to hit the target again. And each time it hits the target again, the chance for it to hit another time goes down, but you can technically keep proccing it over and over. There's no limit on the number of times it can recurve, especially with the node that caps the recurve chance at a minimum of 60%. So you could just keep rolling a recurve and keep going. Very interesting ability. I look forward to giving that one a try eventually. If you are interested in all of the skill and passive changes that are coming in the patch. I will be linking the patch notes down below so you can check them out. The only reason I'm not going over them is just because there's so many for every class. Every class is getting tons of changes. Only the Sentinel actually constitutes to like a true rework, but every class is getting significant balance updates. I definitely recommend checking out the patch notes after you're done watching, so you can see where your class that you want to play when the season comes out, where it's going to be at, what kind of abilities you can expect to be pretty powerful going forward. Now, next up, we've got loot and enemy balance changes. Magic and rare enemies are going to be tankier and do more damage, but they're also going to drop more and better loot. To compensate for that, they're making normal enemies drop less, but we don't really want normal enemies to be what's dropping loot anyway, because they drop crap most of the time as it is. They're also changing it so that if you get a really large explosion of loot, some of the shittier items in that explosion will actually be converted to gold on the ground instead, so that there's less items for the game to have to process into existence, and less stuff for you to click too, because gold automatically picks up when you walk over it. So that'll be good for our wrists. The scaling for enemy HP is being balanced a little bit. It's not changing until level 20, and then it's scaling slowly up to 10% more health at level 100, and then exiled mages in particular are scaling linear up from 25% less health at level 0 up to 5% more health at level 100. So they're not getting much of an increase at the higher levels, and they're actually going to be easier to kill at the lower levels, which I think that's a good choice, because especially the first couple exiled mages you run into in Act 2 can be very painful unless you've gotten like quite lucky with your loot drops and are like quite powerful. So making them have 25% less health at that point is definitely a very good choice. They are also making rune prisons spawn a little less frequently by default though. They're doing the same with loot lizards as well. That's probably mostly to do with the fact that I would imagine we're going to be able to increase the rate of those things spawning with the Weaver's Tree. So they probably wanted to bring the default down a little bit to compensate. And also loot lizards are only going to take 45 seconds, are now going to take 45 seconds to flee instead of 40, which, I mean, it's not a huge difference, but it is good. I personally haven't had any trouble being able to kill loot lizards before they flee. Even when you get the loot lizards that like explode into 3 loot lizards that run in 3 different directions, and then some of the ones you kill then also explode into more, and they all go and they spread everywhere. Even then, 40 seconds has been plenty of time for me to be able to kill all of them most of the time. But I mean, it just makes it easier. There's no harm in that, that's for sure. We've got the player health and ward changes that we went over in the endgame balance video. I'm not going to go into depth on this because I already did in that past video. I'll link that down below so you guys can check that out if you really want to. You can also find it in the patch notes, which will also be linked down below, like I said earlier. But essentially, they're buffing health and nerfing ward. They're nerfing ward retention and buffing ward per second and ward decay threshold a little bit. Mostly the ward retention nerf is coming from them nerfing the ward retention you gain from intelligence from 4% to 2%. And then the main way health is getting buffed is they're making the health and health regen affixes that currently exist give more. And then they're adding many more sources of health and health regen and hybrid health and health regen affixes available on the gear. That way, it's just generally easier to get health and generally a touch harder to get ward, because ward has been outperforming health as a defensive option for a while now. This will probably bring them more in line with each other. We're also getting a bunch of new uniques, 28 new uniques to be exact. There's going to be 4 backer custom uniques, 8 uniques with Weaver's Will, and 16 other additional new uniques. In addition to that, a lot of uniques are being updated. I'm not going to go over them here because there's so many of them, but there are there are some interesting ones. Like one of the ones that stands out to me is Eye of Reen is being changed back to being able to work with abilities like Warpath. So you can have Eye of Reen and channel your Warpath, and it'll actually give you stacks of Reen's Ire. So that's a very nice change to see. There's also Ignivar's head now casts Fire Aura every second while channeling instead of every 2 seconds. So that could make an interesting like disintegrate Fire Aura build. You could do the combination that Fire Aura likes, that Fire Aura Spellblades like to do, which is Shadow Beacon and I forget what the item's called, but it's a unique chest piece that gives you percent increased void damage per Fire Aura that you have. And then you could combine those together with Shadow Beacon. The Shadow Beacon has a lot of void spell damage on it. And then you run Disintegrate, which is a channeled spell that you can channel forever. So you're getting a Fire Aura every second, plus your other sources of Fire Aura. So you stack up a ton of Fire Auras, channeling Disintegrate. That lets you scale the void damage coming from Shadow Beacon, and maybe it could do a lot of damage. That's something I'm thinking about giving a try. Not a huge fan usually of channeled abilities, but that sounds like it could be pretty powerful. So we'll just have to see. We're getting WASD movement in its beta form. They said they're going to make improvements to it over time, but it should be in an okay state to start with. I'm definitely going to give this a try because I really like the WASD movement in PoE 2. However, I kind of have a feeling Last Epoch is probably going to be more akin to Diablo 4's iteration of WASD movement rather than PoE 2's, but we'll see. If it feels good to use, I'll use it. If it doesn't, then I'll just go back to mouse controls. I'm not too fussed either way. I do like that they're adding it, though. I think it's a good idea to try and add that. Mastery respec is coming as well. Like we said before, the gold cost is going to scale from 100 gold at level 1 to 1 million gold at level 100. So that's not a terribly high cost, especially at level 100. 1 million gold is probably pretty easy to come by, especially since you're not going to need it that often at that point, because at that point your build's going to be pretty much developed. If you've gotten a character to level 100, the odds of you wanting to re-roll them to a different build are probably pretty low at that point. One I think is really neat that they're adding is the seasonal server announcements. This is going to work a lot like how PoE's does, which is essentially whenever someone's the first person to a zone, it tells the whole server that they got to that zone. Whenever a hardcore player on the leaderboard dies, it announces the death to everyone on the server, that kind of stuff. That stuff is very fun. It's very nice for just kind of making you feel a bit more a part of the community, even if you're just playing by yourself. I like that stuff a lot. It's small, but it has a decent impact. And then finally, we've got the updated graphics, which I saw the video of the Monolith Hub visuals and the new Waypoint visuals. They look really nice. Like, the graphics are definitely very much improved. I didn't even realize that we were getting graphical updates. I don't remember them mentioning that they were working on updating the graphics, but clearly they've put a lot into it, and it's had good results. It looks very clean. Definitely looking forward to seeing that. And the new waypoints look real cool too. It's a little more fancy, a little more animation on them, that's all. But yeah, that's most of the highlights. Like I said, a lot of the stuff I kind of skimmed over because I've already gone over it in detail in other videos. All of those videos and the patch notes themselves will be linked in the description below. So if you guys want to check those out, that'll be right there for you. But yeah, that was a pretty interesting patch, huh, guys? I am definitely excited for Wednesday, the 17th. Hopefully everything goes smoothly. They seem like they're pretty well prepared for the servers, and thankfully with how Last Epoch works, even if the servers are dying, you can just play on offline mode and it'll be fine. So at least you can experience the content and the changes until the servers stabilize. So that's always nice as a backup plan, at least. I'm going to be jumping into the patch notes over the next couple days before launch to try and figure out what I want to play. Once I have a better idea of what I'm going to play, I'll put a video out going over that. So if you want to see that video when it comes out, be sure to like and subscribe so you can get notified when it does. I haven't decided if I'm going to stream the day the new update comes out, but I probably will. You can check over at twitch.tv/Aragor to see if I am live. I'll also be live on my YouTube channel as well. So if you prefer to watch on YouTube, you can watch here as well. And that's pretty much it for today. I appreciate you guys watching. It means a lot to me. I've been kind of grinding a bit here the last few days trying to get these videos out. It's been a lot of fun, but I really appreciate you guys checking them out. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.